Now, the last time we talked was actually April of earlier this year for season 2, which was a wildly different place than where we are now, both in the show itself and in the real world. So first of all, for the both of you, how are you doing in this increasingly crazy year of 2020?
I'm okay. I'm good. I moved from New York to Los Angeles during this.
Oh, wow.
Which was a weird time to move, but
Yeah.
it's been really good. Yeah, it's been really good. I live now in the same city as Scott. So one of the nice things about the pandemic is I haven't had to make any awkward excuses as to why I don't want to see him. I'm not allowed to see him. Makes things nice. But no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm busy and I'm good. So I am very lucky. That's what I keep reminding myself.
Definitely.
I have a job and all that stuff. So I'm good.
I think, yeah, every time somebody asks me that, I feel like I have to put an asterisk at the end of it, a caveat that like, yeah, I'm fine considering.
Right.
So yes, much better off than a lot of people, so I should not complain.
I will say one of the silver linings for you guys and for myself as well, Last Kids on Earth debuted on Netflix just a little over a year ago, so it's only been out for about a year. So yeah, while 2020 has been pretty crazy for a lot of reasons, that's one great thing to kind of hold on to. You've had a year's worth of Last Kids on Earth. So thinking about the show itself, how it's finding a new audience, how you're getting to see it play out on a new medium, how has that last year been just in terms of your experience with the show becoming available to everybody out there?
It's great. It's like you work for so long and then finally getting to see it out in the real world and have people really enjoy it is great. I mean, the best thing is when we get to hear from kids or from kids' parents about how, they watched the whole series and they watched it all again. And cool. That's really exciting, knowing that we're not just doing it in a vacuum, but that people are really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's same thing. It's been really, winning the Emmy was really cool. We won an Emmy for it, and that was really cool. I think that was like really just such a cool moment. And then in general, like, on social media and whatnot, like just seeing people comment, oh, like my kid watches the show and now he's picking up the books, or the other way around, is always just such a cool to see the sort of like the universes of it collide and feed into one another. Yeah, and it's just been great to every time I go on Netflix to watch something, like, oh, that's my show too. Like that's always cool.
So speaking of that Emmy win, what was the experience like for the both of you?
I didn't think that there was a world in which it would win, so I didn't have any of I wasn't anxious, which is rare for me. Ridiculously rare for me. So we were still in New York, and my parents and my sister, we just hit on, I forget how many months it was, but they only live a couple blocks away, but we hadn't been seeing each other, so it's just me and my wife and daughter the whole time.
Right.
But we were able to have them over, and we ordered pizza and watched it, and then it was like, holy cow, we just won this thing. And it was like I was like in stunned shock. I was like, what? I thought maybe that I made up the words Last Kids on Earth in my head. Like I literally thought maybe that's what happened, but then my sister, my parents, and my wife was just sort of screaming, and my daughter was like, what's going on? And so that was like, it was really very cool.
Yeah, for me, I was on the TV show or streaming show, whatever you want to call it, for the Emmys to accept it, and had been waiting in kind of what they call a virtual green room for several hours, 2 or 3 hours, and with the same people. And we were just talking and talking and talking with all the other nominees. And then they finally got to our category. And when they said the name of the show, I was like, wait, that's our show.
Yeah,
why are they saying the name of our show? And so I think I made a noise like, oh, and then realized, oh shoot, I got to start thanking people. But yeah, I was shocked. I'm really proud of the show, and I think it deserves accolades. But I was really surprised.
I don't want to sound like it was like I was shocked because it's not good. It's not what I mean. It's just still like it still feels, I don't know. It just felt so surreal. especially with there's so many good shows that we were not up against, but that we're in the same category.
Well, congratulations from this end on the Emmy win, and hopefully more to come. You guys will be like seasoned veterans of the award circuit by this time, next year when they roll back around for future seasons. So jumping into season 3, which is why I get to talk to you guys today, this season pretty much adapts The Nightmare King. So jumping back to Max real quick, how would you kind of set up the story for fans out there who are just about to dive into season 3?
Oh, okay. So like big setup for for people with no familiarity, it's the end of the world. There's 4 best buddies, and they're surviving in a suburban town, battling monsters and zombies. And there's a big, giant, extra-dimensional threat out there. And they have now become friends with a bunch of good guys, sort of monsters. And things seem all kind of okay for the moment until 2 things happen. One is they discover a broadcast from other humans, so they know that they're not the only ones out there, and that throws our main character, our hero Jack, into a sort of like emotional disarray. And there's also a new enemy, a villain called the Nightmare King, who is sort of getting inside Jack's head with these sort of strange, like infused dream nightmare things. So it's a roller coaster. Oh, and also there's a roller coaster scene.
That was perfect. And then Scott, like a related question for you when it came to sort of pulling the parts from Max's book and really heightening certain scenes. What was it that stood out to you for this particular book that you were like, oh man, I can't wait to get this in this season?
I think it's getting into the characters' heads. That in the book and the book series, you really get into Jack's head, but the television series gives us a chance to get into all the characters' heads. And so having a villain that actually messes with their heads and you get to see kind of their nightmares and what's going on was really fun. And we even, I don't want to give too much away, but towards the end of the season, we get to go into almost another realm of imagination and nightmares, which we'd never done before. And that was really cool because you can start playing with everything once, all bets are off once you're in kind of a fantasy world. So that was really fun.
Yeah, that was definitely for me one of the highlights of watching this season. I'll jump right into that question because it's related. This season, like the 2 that came before it, you guys pack a ton of like just fun into the show. I mean, it's kind of silly to say it that way, but yeah, it's just a fun show. You've got kart races, you've got a bunch of fun techie stuff, you've got a bunch of magic stuff that you get to see, and then just a ton of imagination. You even have different animation sequences and animation styles that show off different story elements throughout the season, which I thought was really fun. But how freeing was it for you to be able to go into that kind of creative dreamscape, let's say, to kind of shake off the shackles of reality a little bit? What was that like as far as your creative experience this season?
It's freeing, but it's also restrictive in a strange way. It's freeing at the beginning, and then you realize, unfortunately, there are a lot of practicalities about making a cartoon that every new place you go means a new background,
Sure.
and every new character or costume means a new character. So there start to be financial and time restrictions, and just how many bodies can we throw at this in terms of the staff. So you can go crazy, and then you got to kind of rein it in and think, well, how do we go make it look like we're going crazy without breaking the bank? But I will give Max a lot of credit that he was constantly on the platform.
The podium?
Soapbox.
Sure.
About we need to make sure this stays fun. That this show is not about a terrible end of the world experience. It's about these kids having fun at the end of the world. So that was always foremost in our minds. Is despite the danger and the real stakes, they're trying to make the best of it, and so we have to put fun in the show because that's what the kids would actually do.
Definitely, yeah, it's a fun apocalypse. Absolutely. Go ahead, Max.
And I would say in terms a different sense of freeing, like for me, was that section of the season was the first thing that was totally not a part of the books. We were doing something completely different and much like bigger and visual, and it was really fun for me to. It was like the first time on the show where it felt like, oh, I'm writing something that's like 100% like just totally. Like almost, I felt like I was working on somebody else's project for a moment or somebody else's thing, just to be able to like, okay, totally from scratch? What if it was like now like this, and we can do this new thing? And so that was just really fun. It was like it was a different sort of way, just like a different exercise, but and really it was just incredibly fun, and also a challenge to like, the sort of like entering the nightmare realm, entering the dream things, like that is like a thing that you've seen, like we went back together and like some of us hung out and watched like Nightmare on Elm Street, and like there's the challenge to make sure it like you're not doing what's been done before. And that was a fun challenge too, because it would be easy to like phone that in, sort of like, oh, it's like a nightmare, and like stuff is weird, it feels like a nightmare. And so it was really fun to make sure like we were doing it in a way that still felt true to Last Kids, and it had tension and all that stuff, without just getting like wacky weird. That was one of the funnest things for me on the entire show.
I would say that an October release, specifically for like the Nightmare King stories, is well timed. So well done there with your holiday timing. Can you maybe tease one or two scenes or sequences, or maybe even new characters that were created that maybe weren't in the book, but that you got to kind of bring that fresh perspective to when you got to write them in for the show?
I think, the very first episode is one that wasn't in the book, that we thought it's important for the kids to have power, that's the thing. They're like, well, we've got the society now we need to power it all and get kind of back to normal. And like you said, they use that for go-kart races because they're kids. But we thought it'd be fun to kind of set up the whole series with almost like a prequel to the book of how they get the power and showing what normal is before it all goes crazy. So that was something we struggled with in the writer's room, is this the way to open the season, is with kind of a not slower episode, but establishing episode rather than leaping right into the main action. And I think it worked out really well, but maybe Max feels differently.
Oh, it was a disaster. Terrible. No, we spent a lot of time on those first couple episodes figuring out, just breaking down. I remember, it's like taking me back now. In this book, it sort of opens up, and like Jack they have a community now, and there's camaraderie and stuff and everything, and they have electricity, and they've done a bunch of stuff that you haven't seen. And it felt like to make the threat to that community that they've created feel real later on, we needed to see them create it a little bit and actually build it. If you just kind of smash cut to, hey, we've got a great place to live now, you wouldn't feel as earned, or they wouldn't be as the stakes wouldn't be as high when stuff got serious. So that was a really that was a big fun one, and we bounced around a lot of different ways for them to get that electricity and that power. And I remember we got a couple that felt really right, and then we slept on it, and it felt no, that's not right. That doesn't feel like Last Kids. It feels too big. That feels too like been there, done that. And I think we landed in a really great place with how that all worked out.
Wasn't there a point where we were talking about like a big like Hoover Dam kind of thing?
Yeah, there's one where it opened up like almost like Goldeneye, where Jack was like, sliding down the side of a huge dam to like turn on enough power that like would run a quarter of the country, and it felt just too big for like the sort of the fun that these kids have, and it's always supposed to feel relatable, like I want it to feel, we talk about this in the room all the time, that like it should feel like if you were a kid and the world ended, like how would you do things, and where would you find fun? And going to the Hoover Dam to flip 1 million generators felt too big, and so and instead having them get it from the local planetarium, which feels like a relatable sort of like field trip experience, but it's like a field trip at the end of the world, felt much more in line with it. And I remember that was such a eureka moment when we were like, oh, that makes sense. That's the way to do it.
I have to say, as a fan of the show, yeah, that really landed for me, because it not only kept that spirit of fun and got to, include Quint, like, the techie side of things too, to give him kind of a purpose in the larger sense to provide power to this community and use tech experience and knowledge to put that together. But it also, pardon the electricity pun, it grounded the story a little bit more, because it was a real problem that they had to deal with, and it was done in a fun way. So I think you guys nailed it. I think Writer's Room came up with some good solutions on that, and then the animation was obviously fun as well. So good job. Speaking more to sort of like the emotional core of your main cast here, each of your characters, the kind of featured foursome, they have their own sort of internal battles that are then sort of brought to life, shall we say, in different ways through this main kind of antagonist. So can you walk us through maybe what each of the kids individually are struggling with?
Sure. I'll start with Jack. And for him, it's that when they hear this radio broadcast, for the other members of for his buddies, it's a wonderful moment. There's people out there. We're not alone.
Right.
It's not just us. Like it isn't as sort of hopeless as it might have felt like to them sort of internally. But for Jack, it's this weird thing where he's been searching for like a family his whole life, and now he's sort of created it in the end of the world, and suddenly it's disrupted, and it's a sort of he has to walk and also when we were writing the show, we had to walk a sort of complicated line where he is like frustrated that his friends are getting what they want and he's not. He has a tough time dealing with that and expressing that. Even though it feels like a very sort of, it's like such a huge, massive scenario, like outsized end of the world scenario, it reminded me of, going to college and some friends didn't go to college or something like that.
Right.
Like it's stuff that like happens in life where groups of friends, things happen where you're being pulled in different directions by the world. And so it still felt relatable. And that's always an important thing for still feel relatable. So Jack is really, it's the most turmoil he's gone through in the series thus far, by far.
For June, it's really the opposite of Jack, that she finally sees, oh my God, there's hope. She thinks this is the best moment since the apocalypse, is finding that there's other people alive. And so she can't understand anyone who doesn't see this as their biggest priority. So anytime anybody wants to have fun or work on something else or sees another danger, she's like, no, that's not key. So it's opening up her mind to the fact that other people perceive this differently. And Dirk actually has a completely different thing, which I don't believe was in the books. I think we made it up just for the series to give him something, which was he starts to feel more like his family is with the monsters.
Yeah.
He's always been oversized and very physical and feels like that may be where he fits in. And it may not be what all the monsters think. They may not want him to join in, but that's kind of his arc for the season, is where do I fit in? Which was really fun to play with and come up with separate scenes for him.
Yeah, and Quint has just incredible sort of value to their team as sort of the gadget guy and Jack's best friend and things like that. And he has to sort of, he struggles with voicing that he's not only that, and making sure that even though Jack is his best friend in the world, and Quint is very much Jack's best friend in the world. And but as Jack goes through this turmoil, Quint has to sort of remind Jack of that a little bit. There's a scene that it's one of my favorite, just little moments in the scene in the series where they finally sort of, I wouldn't say they have it out necessarily, but like, I don't know. They both realize that they're not really hearing the other person, and then they kind of come there. It's very nice. Yeah.
That's right. I was just gonna say there's a great exchange where Jack says, "You've never been this mad at me before, Quint." And he says, "No, I've just never told you before." And so it's like, oh, there's been this stuff underneath all this time, and they're finally coming clean, which was really nice.
No, I love that. And I love especially, too, that, each of the characters has their own kind of thing that they're dealing with. That's also reflected in the actual sort of action-packed portion of the story. You get to kind of explore those in a different way, shall we say, without giving away any spoilers. But I also love that kids and adults like myself out there who are watching this can identify with each of those individual struggles. It's not just like one thing for one specific person. Everybody's felt like probably all of those things at different points in their lives.
Dave, you've wanted to be a monster? Is that what you're saying?
100%. I always identify with the monsters, yeah. No, I'm definitely the techie Donatello of the group. So me and Quint are 100% on the same page. Now, I also want to talk about your supporting cast. It feels like in season 3 or part 3, book 3, we get to expand your cast quite a bit. So your incredible guest and supporting cast really gets a chance to kind of shine and show off their personalities as these various monsters. There's a fantastic 1-2 quick lines between Mark Hamill and Bruce Campbell, which absolutely floored me. Can you talk about your guest cast this season?
Yeah, we love the exchange you're talking about, and we were like, is anybody even going to notice this?
100% did, yeah.
But
and then they were also neither of them knew it. I think what the other person was recording.
Oh, that's funny.
And I think maybe we told one of them, and I said, "We're gonna make anybody mad with this." Or, I don't know. I love that. Yeah, I mean, the supporting cast just continued to be, Mark Hamill, Bruce Campbell, Catherine O'Hara, Rosario Dawson. They just throughout, just I don't know. It's still like a little bit like, geez, I can't believe that we were writing for them and they were delivering, and it's just incredible. I'm probably forgetting people. I'm sure I am.
It's a pretty huge cast too, and you've got a lot more Emmy-winning star power on your side now too. So you're even more stocked for the next time. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, everybody completely brought their A game, and it was great. And like he said, a lot of them, I don't think any of the, in quotes, star talent ever got to work together. So when we finally get to see it cut together and see Bruce Campbell talking to Mark Hamill, it's fantastic. It's so surreal for us.
Yeah, and it was definitely a delight for me, as obviously a fan of both of them for pretty much my entire life. It'll land with the folks like me out there in the audience. Even if the kids are like, wait, what? You can explain it to the kids. It'll be fine. Because folks are getting a chance to check out this season the weekend that this episode airs, I want to give people a spoiler warning. I want to give you gentlemen a spoiler warning as well. I'm about to ask a couple spoiler questions. After the credits, after kind of everything's wrapped up with a bow for our foursome and their monster friends, we get another monster appearance, an appearance of a new character, plus the notable addition of some snow on the end credits titles and the sound of jingle bells in the background. So if you're familiar with the books, you may think there's a Christmas-themed adaptation of Cosmic Beyond coming up next. Am I hitting the mark pretty well on this one?
That's absolutely the intention.
Cool.
That's what we're alluding to. At this stage, we're waiting for Netflix to order more episodes.
Okay.
So we're, gung-ho and ready to do it, but they got to pull the trigger and say, yes, the audience wants more. So kids, call Netflix. I don't know how you do that. Look at Netflix online.
Yeah.
I believe it's 1-800-NETFLIX.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the intention with that, is to go, oh, there's more coming.
Yep, we talked a lot about how to hint at that just right, and have that cliffhanger moment, it'll be very cool. I really hope that we get to see those two in action and do like their sort of holiday, finally look at like holidays during the end of the world and how we do them, and that's really fun.
Very cool. Max, when you were putting the idea together for the book, before obviously any of the animated series stuff, why the Christmas themed holiday? Or winter holiday? Because like you said, you wanted to see holidays at the end of the world and what that looked like. That was interesting to you.
It was two things. One, it was total fear and indecisiveness on my part, where I felt like at the end of book 3 felt like, okay, these guys, this gang just probably needs to, they're sort of, the next sort of step would maybe be to go and search stuff out. But I wasn't ready to write that yet. There's more stuff I still wanted to do. And I wanted to make sure that before they did that and did this sort of went in search of something bigger beyond Wakefield, that I was able to plot it out. So I didn't want to, I'm not somebody who can just sort of write and then, I don't know, do it. I from the beginning, I've always had a sort of vision for the end, and that's changed a little bit. But around book 3, at that moment, it's like, okay, I want to make sure that I know where this is going. So I don't want it to be one of those situations where you're not able to sort of lay the groundwork for it, lay all that pipe necessary to make sure that it all feels earned, and that word's overused, but earned and like the author had a plan, and for it to feel like the author has a plan, the author actually has to have that sort of plan. And so I was like, I got to hold on. I need to stick them here. And like, so snowstorm, they can't leave. And that causes things to change in town. And then like just the idea of doing any sort of like big, I don't know, like snow days. I grew up in New England, like snow days were the best. So like a sort of snow day feel felt like it'd be really fun. And I always love when I get to see our monsters react to like human things and be confused by them, and like them not having snow in their other dimensional world felt like a really fun way for them to sort of like explain like, this is a snowball fight and it's cool, and don't get mad, like I'm throwing a snowball at you, don't eat me, like that's the stuff is always like really fun to write and think about.
No, I'm super excited for that. I can't wait to see kind of what Atomic Cartoons does with the animation for that too. That'll be something new that we haven't really seen before in the 3 seasons that exist. And real quick before I run out of time with you, I noticed, I believe it's Evie Stark, and correct me if I'm wrong, who appears and is credited in this episode, voiced by, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, so I apologize. Rebecca, is it Shoichet? I'm not sure how to pronounce her name.
Yeah. Yes. And I don't think we can say any more than what it says in the credits.
Can you maybe talk about how you came to cast Rebecca for the part?
It's hard because you're casting someone with, again, spoilers, one line, but you know that it may extend
right.
far into the future if we go ahead and make season 4, season 5, season 6. So it was looking for someone who had a voice that was playful, because if you've read the next book, the character is very much into pop culture and superheroes and things like that. But also she was the first real kind of adult that we've seen. She's a young adult, but she's still older than the kids. So she has to sound a little more mature, but still have that childish joy. And she's also a villain. So it was looking for someone whose voice could do all those things. And Rebecca was one person who came to us where we felt like, yeah, she's got that range.
Yeah, definitely a great choice. A veteran in the voice acting industry. Look up, IMDb page, ton of titles. Can't wait to hear and see more. But unfortunately, this is going to have to be my last question for the both of you. Since you teased, season 4, 5, 6, and beyond, and a hopeful movie and everything else, Last Kids on Earth or beyond, what's up next for the both of you in the remainder of 2020? So, Max, if you'd like to take that first.
So right now we have. I'm in the middle of writing Last Kids on Earth 7, the 7th book in the series.
Wow.
And outlining a sort of new kind of side quest adventure for 2 of the characters, which I really hope will, still waiting to see exactly how it's going to shape up and or turn out and what it'll be, but I'm really excited about. And then looking forward to, what else can I say? And working on working on the Last Kids on Earth video game, and looking forward to that.
Oh, very cool.
Like on a ridiculously geeky wish fulfillment level.
And I'm just finishing up. We're doing the sound mix for one more piece of Last Kids on Earth entertainment on Netflix. I don't know how much we can talk about it, but there is something coming beyond the 10 episodes dropping October 16th.
Interesting.
So I'm finishing that up and then starting to do development work on some other projects, which I can't talk about yet. But
isn't that always the way?
Yes, other animated productions that you'll all come to know and love in the future.
Fantastic. I don't know what that tease was for. I'm not kidding our listeners out there. I have no idea. I'm hoping it's maybe an interactive special. I have no clue, but I guess we'll have to wait and see, and I'll ask you gentlemen next time. But thank you for your time so much today. Thank you for Last Kids on Earth. I can't wait for everybody out there to check it out, and I can't wait to see more. So thanks again.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Dave.
And congrats on that Emmy again. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.